Lately I have some cloudy days here in Wesel, Germany, but nevertheless we are testing out those two here, the Oppo Find X9 Ultra versus the Xiaomi 17 Ultra quadruple lens setup versus a triple lens setup that used to be a quadruple lens setup. Quite interesting, this comparison here. So we have a 1-inch type sensor on the Xiaomi, but Oppo decided to go to a different route, 200 megapixel 101.12-inch size sensor, so almost 1-inch type sensor, but a bit of smaller, but more megapixels there. Then we have the periscope zoom, both 200 megapixels. But the interesting thing is here, variable aperture on Xiaomi and larger sensor size, 1/1.28-inch size on the Oppo, which is super interesting as well. And then we have the weakest sensors on both, probably the ultra wide angle, 50 megapixel, and the Oppo has a dedicated 10x optical zoom sensor. It's a bit of a smallish sensor, but nevertheless it might give it an edge, especially at daylight. We will test it out. And then of course some front-facing shooters here as well, and I think we start off with the front-facing videos. Both front-facing videos here at 4K 30 frames per second. Which one is more stable? Which one has the more realistic colors? Which one you think is looking a bit better? Wider for sure is a little bit, I think the Oppo can zoom in to 1x. Now it should be more or less equal there, 21mm on both. HDR appears to be a bit better there on the Xiaomi, but we have to take a look at the big screen there. And you can tell me in the comments which one you think is better looking in your opinion. Both feature autofocus, so the Xiaomi has autofocus and the Oppo also has autofocus, which is quite good. Both have the feature now that they can switch during recording to the main camera shooters. So let's do this. And there we have the main camera shooters, 1x on both, 23mm on both, and very stable on both, I say. And yeah, we can also go to the ultra wide angles. There we go, ultra wide angle versus ultra wide angle, a bit wider looking there on the Oppo. Xiaomi is a little bit more zoomed in my opinion. Which one is performing better here in terms of stabilization? And I think it's time that we do a bit of a vlogging test on both of them. And for that I just turned them around and I'm now vlogging with them. 1-inch type sensor on the Xiaomi versus a little bit of a smaller sensor there, but with higher megapixel count. Which one is performing better there? Do you notice a difference in terms of bokeh background blur between those two here in this vlogging style video? I think with 23mm both should be able to give you the exact same field of view, which is quite nice. But if you need a bit of a wider field of view because you need to show your surroundings a little bit more, you can switch to the ultra wide angle. They can switch between all lenses, 4K up to 60 frames per second. And let's go to the ultra wide angle there on both. So this is the ultra wide angle on both there. I have to move my hands on both out because they're quite down below those ultra wide angles to not include my fingers inside of the shot. Which one is wider now? In this vlogging style, which one is sharper, which one is performing better in your opinion? Also in terms of HDR, if there's a little bit of HDR going on, even because it's not a very bright day. It's warm but not so sunny today. And I think we should start a little zoom test. So now we are recording with the ultra wide angle, perform a little zoom test there. Just go directly to 2x, see how lens switching is working here. Then we go to 3x here and we go to 3.2x there. You see it's a bit more closed up on the Xiaomi. Then we go 6x here and 4.3x there. And we can go 8.6x. Now you should be able to read 10x here, the number there in the window, and both should be very stable. And let's go to 10x here on the Xiaomi as well. So which one is performing better in your opinion? Let's go even further. This is now 15x and we go over here to 15x as well. So which one is more stable? Definitely I think a little bit better on the Oppo. Let's go all the way to 30x, all the way to 30x, and it's a little bit less stable there on the Xiaomi. So which one you prefer here? Which one is working better? And let's go back to 1X on both. Which one had performed better here? A little bit like of panning here going on. The screen on the Xiaomi is brighter already than the one on the Oppo, which is a bit of a disappointment for the Oppo. Both dim down a little bit, but it appears to be brighter on the Xiaomi. So which one is better in terms of stabilization? On screen, both look equally good. But again, write in the comments which one you prefer. When we check out the photos, we start off with macro shots, and the Oppo Find X9 Ultra can get much closer with telezoom for macro shots than the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. As you can see, it has much larger sensor, also much more background blur. Detail level is impressive on both actually, but yeah, it is way more details there on the Oppo. You can digitally crop in on the Xiaomi, then you get very close to what the Oppo is doing here. But of course you can also digitally crop on the Oppo, and 2x crop there. It gets pretty even, I would say, maybe even slight more edge towards the Oppo. And when you go even further, 10x here, it's still cropping from the first tele, not the dedicated 10x, because it cannot close focus so much. Still much more details that you can get out of there. To whatever the Xiaomi is doing. So yes, the Xiaomi, we know that already. The 14 Ultra was better, the 15 Ultra even was better there for close focusing macros. The Oppo Find X9 Ultra is better than the 17 Ultra for macro shots. Selfies are quite interesting because the Xiaomi is leaning towards the 1x option always, which is 26mm instead of 21, which is the same focal length that the Find X9 Ultra had. This is why I was always confused. I thought the Xiaomi has 26mm on the front, because it always defaults to that, where the Find X9 Ultra always defaults to 21mm. This is why you have a wider field of view. You saw me a little bit, or you see me a little bit more here. In terms of detail levels, when we check it out here, it's not only closer there, it appears to be a little bit, both are faking eyebrows and so on. It's a little bit less evident on the Xiaomi, but the Xiaomi is also doing that warmer face here. Nice and sharp on the Oppo. I think the Oppo has an edge there over the Xiaomi with its sharpness. That it's a bit artificial, but it's not going over the top. I would still prefer this one here over this one here if I have to crop in. Then we come to the dedicated zooms, telezooms, and their capabilities, especially when you zoom in longer zooms, 10x for example. The Xiaomi 17 Ultra is very good for that already, thanks to its variable periscope zoom, even though it only goes to the 4.3x, which is 100 millimeters, yeah. So 230mm it has to crop in 2 times and a bit still. And the Oppo Find X9 Ultra has a dedicated 10x sensor, but does it really make a huge difference is the big question here. With f3.5, as you see, it's really using it well. Let's check it out. Let's go close here. And yes, again, it is in 25 megapixel mode by default on the Oppo. Let's zoom out one time and then we get something very close to. And yes, it's a difference. You really notice that the Oppo is looking more natural, where the Xiaomi is heavily processing this contrasty look, sharpening things up, and it doesn't look so pleasant. But it's a huge difference. Not really. If you zoom in even further, now we are coming to 30x zoom, then we might notice something. First of all, the Oppo is now not going to 25 megapixels anymore, but 12, so we have the same kind of cutout here. Here you'll notice that, yes, the Oppo has the clear advantage of the optical 10x zoom, but it's not a huge thing where it's clearly beating down the Xiaomi. It's really something you have to, like here, don't notice much of a difference between those two. A bit more contrasty look, but this is a Xiaomi Leica specific thing. But really, if you pixel peep, you see that how much edited it looks like, how much unnatural it looks like, and how much more natural it looks like here, even though it is also struggling at 30x zoom range for sure. This is, look at the green grass there in the background, a win for the Oppo for sure when you have longer zooms. First attempt of a portrait shot, 35mm with the main camera sensors on both, and both with the portrait, and I think f2.8 was set there as a virtual aperture. Both are doing a fine job, but when you take a look at here, It's softer here, what the Xiaomi does, and it's a bit sharper what the Oppo does. It's a bit maybe edited, but at this daylight, I have to say, I don't see this AI slop so much. It appears to be natural and more sharp and detailed. Especially I'm impressed by the eye color, which is a bit dark thanks to the higher contrast on the Xiaomi, and it nailed it on the Oppo. I'm quite surprised by that. Cutouts here, both are doing a fine job. Even fine hair is cutted out very nicely. I like the bokeh balls on both. Very nice indeed. And the colors are pretty much identical, besides the green here. It's way more punchy on the Xiaomi than on the Oppo. Then talking about colors, with the Oppo Find X9 Ultra, I was taking the original color, or the default one that we have. On the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, I used the Leica Vivid. And this is what you get by default. You see the green grass was more vivid in the portrait shots because we have a bit more kind of vivid shots here for sure that we get because of the color profile that we have chosen here. And yeah, this is what we have here in comparison to the Oppo. Also notice that the bokeh is a bit more bokeh-licious on the Oppo than on the Xiaomi. This is, I think, thanks to the more vivid colors, more contrasty colors on the Xiaomi, but maybe it's also adding a little bit more sharpening. But as soon as I switch the Xiaomi 17 Ultra to Leica Authentic, look what happens. First of all, we get a more natural shot with lots of more dark here in the front. In terms of colors, it's getting more close to the Find X9 Ultra, but still remains a little bit more warm. But look at the bokeh there. Yes, again, we have a little bit, I think, closed up shot here on the Oppo. But look at this, how smooth the bokeh looks like. No over sharpening mess like we have here on the Oppo in that case. So yes, Leica Authentic is the way to go on the Xiaomi if you want to get this very bokeh-licious soft bokeh on objects and subjects. And then we have this shot. Let's compare first of all this shot. Yeah, this shot, which is Leica Vibrant versus the the Oppo original. What I really like is, first of all, we get the more contrast look on the Xiaomi 7. What I really like on the Oppo is the colors. They nail the colors because this is the right red, where here it's just way too yellow on the Xiaomi. And also in terms of detail level, I think that here with the ultra wide angle, the Oppo is doing a bit of a nicer job. But you will be surprised what I will find out and say just in a second, because I was shocked about it. I'm praising Oppo for its processing because it is doing a good job there. Also the colors are way nicer here. Also orange is orange. Here's a bit of brighter orange, which is not so realistic. In terms of other detail levels there, it's like almost identical between those two. Not much of a difference, both 14 millimeters. But let's check out Leica Authentic and let's compare it with Oppo's Hasselblad Master Mode, which looks like this. As you see here, Master Mode is even more dark, duller, and has more vignetting. It's quite surprising. Again, the Xiaomi 7 Ultra is way too yellow here with the brake work, where it nails it on the Oppo. But what the hell is going on with the sharpness? This is probably when you have an unedited shot on the Oppo, sharpness is way down. Leica Authentic is probably still sharpening up a little bit more. But here you see how shocked I also was. It's like, ooh, they're adding tons of sharpening then for the normal mode in order to rescue the ultra wide angle shot, because otherwise it's just simply very, very soft, especially here compared with here. The Xiaomi is running loops around the Oppo there in that regard. But the colors are way nicer there, I think, on the Oppo. So here you see the before and after. This is a huge difference in sharpness and detail levels, so they doing a lot of stuff there to make their shots better. This shot here, 70 versus 75 millimeter, just to see if we can focus properly, and nope, only the Xiaomi was doing it properly. Here, as you see, I was tapping on the sign on both, and the Oppo struggled a bit. But the next shot, it managed to put in focus, which is 400 millimeter here. For some reason, I cropped in a little bit more too much. Let's go. It's the second one. You just press the button again. The, what is it, 8x button again. You end up with 400 millimeter. Where here you have 10 times zoom. But still here, when you take a look at this here, already, even if it's so cropped in, I think the optical advantage of the Oppo becomes evident. But when we zoom even further, 460, and I try to nail it as well, which is like 20 times zoom, yes, on both, very identical. In terms of colors, it's just the contrast that's a bit different there on the 17 Ultra, more contrast then. But when we go in and you take a look at this here, the advantage of this 3.5 aperture, you can see it is like 10x zoom, optical zoom lens, is evident there. So the text is crispier, doesn't have like this white kind of outlines there. It is fantastic to have a 10x zoom on a smartphone camera, and at the same time it is just astonishing how you can achieve that. But does it really have a huge impact and difference there in both of them? Nope. It's just that the left looks more natural and it's fantastic, yes, but it's not like a night and day difference where I give like tons of points more to the Oppo. It's just a bit better there. Then also something that you might encounter in daily lives, pets. You want to photograph pets and how they move. I nailed it on the 17 Ultra, Xiaomi 17 Ultra with 200 millimeters here at 139, which is like 6x. It's also kind of sharp, but it doesn't have this flare of the Xiaomi. The Xiaomi shot is like a bit better there. So that's for sure. And then other shots that I tried side by side. This one here, I think I nailed it on both of them. But here, I think also with, let's go a bit out, with regards of a little bit brighter there, you see the eye a little bit better there. Also here you see how much processing is going on the Xiaomi already. This is like, what is it, 230 times. So yes, the optical advantage again on the Oppo is kicking in there, and the shutter speed was fine enough and it captured it very nicely there. And then both can struggle at, what is it, 400 millimeter, 460 millimeter there with the bird moving there. Yeah, it's a hard thing to do, but yeah, you see it's a back and forth between them. At 10x shots, especially for such things, then the Oppo has a bit of an advantage for sure. And then LOFIC sensor, we want to check this as well. LOFIC sensor on the 17 Ultra, where we don't have a LOFIC sensor on the Find X9 Ultra. Do we see much of a difference? I didn't see it in the 1x shots, so I took this special shot to just demonstrate it to you. Let's go here because it's like also 24 megapixels. Or 5 megapixels. Yes, you can see this is a bit of a beige wise, where here white, this is here a whiter white, and everything's a bit more overexposed. Yes, the LOFIC sensor is working on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, and in this extreme situations you can see it, but mostly every day-to-day usage, hardly notice it. Main camera shot again, now with portrait mode on both, set to f2.8, and yeah, this looks a bit overexposed there on the Oppo, where the Xiaomi keeps it more real there. Also, I think the cutouts are a little bit artificial there on the Oppo, and the Xiaomi does a better job there. But in terms of detail levels here, again, it's a bit softer on the Xiaomi. Usually I like it because it's not heavily edited then, but the editing is so natural on the Oppo that I cannot really complain. And yeah, I like the Oppo a bit better there in terms of detail levels again. Main camera shot, just to show you again the difference between the original mode on the Oppo and the Vivid, Leica Vivid mode on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. Way more punchy, way more sharpened up than what we get here on the Oppo. And the Oppo I prefer, to be completely honest, from the colors, but also from the softness. Then 10x versus the 8.6x that we have there on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. And in terms of bokeh, Bokehlicious, both are fantastic sensors, and Bokehlicious sensors for sure. Let's go out a little bit there, but you see that here is a bit of AI slope pixelation going on, and the bokeh is more Bokehlicious on the 10x on the Find X9 Ultra. Another selfie shot here, 21mm. Now I forced the 21mm on the Xiaomi, and I immediately notice why I don't like the Xiaomi shot so much at 21mm. Way warmer, way too yellow this shot there, and again processing the detail levels on the selfie cam on the Oppo Find X9 Ultra is better than the one on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra for sure. Ultra wide angle again, color difference there. Left looks like a camera, right looks like a smartphone. That's it basically. Between those two, let's check out the portraits. Quite interesting because I think we have a new portrait king, and I'm declaring the Oppo Find X9 Ultra the portrait king. Why is that the case? First of all, 35mm. You have to keep in mind, it's very close, and if you have a different opinion, I can live with it. 35mm crop on the main sensor. This is what we get here. It's pretty close, but look at the detail levels there on the Oppo. Granted, I know it is AI also helping tremendously, and the Xiaomi is keeping it more real by not using so much AI, has a bit of overexposure, and it's not over sharpening stuff. But does it look over sharpened on the Oppo? Nope. Does it look a little bit artificial on the left side here with the pores of skin and so on? Nope. Here, the left eyebrow here, a bit artificial, but in comparison here, also a bit artificial. The eye of the color, the color of the eye, very nice. Sharpness, detail level, I prefer the Oppo. Because the Oppo is looking realistic without overdoing it, without looking artificial. Even though I know it is artificial, and when you look at it, it is a bit of artificial. 46mm, however, which is 2x crop on the main camera sensor. This one is going to the Xiaomi. Xiaomi is clearer, is sharper, where here it's a bit soft and smoothened out, has a bit of a halo effect, and looks a bit more artificial also with the way I open my eyes, the wrinkles and the beard, and that is something that goes to the Xiaomi for sure, where the Oppo is struggling. Even though it has 200 megapixels on this sensor, it's not really helping. It's a bit too soft in my opinion. Then we come to the primary telescope, periscope sensors. Here 70 versus 75mm. Looks pretty close. Also the colors are very, very identical. But when you zoom in 100%, you see the big difference. And yeah, go away, close your eyes, open them up and tell me which one you prefer. And I think like 80-90% of people will go to the left, and this is the one that I will also decide to. Also the warmth of the colors, it nailed it. The color sensor is essential to nailing colors. I said it already on the Huawei devices, and I have to say it for the Oppo devices. Yes, maybe in the previous generations they had some struggling still going on, but with this generation they nailed it. It's a nice color and it's correct, and it looks nicer on the Oppo. And when we go in further, 139, which is 6x, which is a crop 2 times on the 70mm roughly. And we have the 100mm maximum optical, variable optical zoom on the Xiaomi. Keep that in mind. But it's not rescuing the Xiaomi shot here. It's soft, it's blurry. 1/20th of a second, 1/33rd of a second. Yes, a little bit faster shutter speed here, but wow. Even if you have the blurriness out of the shot there on the Xiaomi, it was on a tripod, so it should not be an issue because I'm not moving there so much that I'm not headbanging, just sitting there for the shot. So it is softer, way softer there on the Xiaomi, and the details are getting a bit lost. I praise the Xiaomi for not being over sharpened, but the Oppo, besides here again my left eyebrow being a little bit processed looking, I prefer, because it looks so natural. It's like you have to look twice or 3 times to notice that this is not really detail that was probably there, but it's a bit of AI that is optimizing my face. And this is pretty good what they're doing. And it goes even further. We can go 10x here maximum, which is then also, I hope it's using a dedicated sensor there. At least it looks like this. And 135mm, which is 5x there on the Xiaomi 7 Ultra, which is the stretch, it's the maximum. Still doesn't look bad on its own, but the detail level in comparison is just tremendous. And here you notice that, yes, this is a bit of AI. Basically painting the pores of my skin there. Sometimes it looks a bit realistic, other times it's not so much. But still, it is a tremendous difference in detail levels there. And it's not on first glance clear that this is artificial on the Oppo, which is a tremendous effort there. And I have to declare the Oppo Find X9 Ultra now the portrait king against the 17 Ultra. Yes, some purists might say Xiaomi 17 Ultra is still better because it doesn't do so much AI slop. But the Oppo Find X9 Ultra's AI slop, plus I think the advantage with the sensor, is giving it more details, more not so much artificially directly looking results, where I still have to crown the Find X9 Ultra Portrait King here. So this is night video now on the Oppo Find X9 Ultra. We're using the almost 1-inch type sensor here on this one, and we have 4K 30 frames per second set, but we have an adjustable frame rate set, so maybe in this lower light situation it is going down to 24 frames per second, but I cannot control it aside from the Pro video mode. Standing now under the light here, how well is my face exposed? And walking away, how good is the stabilization doing here, especially in this low light condition? And now walking towards the dark here. Internal mics, by the way, and a bit of rain going on here. So what do you think about this one here? How well is it doing? Now I'm recording with the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. It has a dedicated night video mode, which is recording 4K 24 frames per second, and I'm using it. We have a 1-inch type sensor here, using the internal mics, walking towards the light. Still a bit of rain falling here, light rainfall. Standing now under the light, how good is the coating here on the lens? Walking away from the light in the background, how well is it doing? How good is stabilization here? Do we have shakiness in the shot? Usually when I'm walking like this and I'm in focus, you don't notice much shakiness. There should not notice much shakiness. How does it perform here in comparison to the Oppo Find X9 Ultra? What do you think? Nighttime photos are quite interesting because if you are in auto mode on the Oppo, it uses the flash for the ultra wide angle. Yes, I couldn't believe it, but this is why we have such a dark exposure. It was not using a long exposure time, it just used the flash. And I didn't see an immediate way to force it to use the night mode in the default automatic mode. The only thing I found is the dedicated night mode to try that out. But let's check out why it decided to do that. First of all, it's night, and this is actually what I saw with my own eyes, where it made it a bit brighter on the 17 Ultra. But when we take a look at the detail levels, oh, wow, the ultra wide angle looks so much clearer on the Oppo. The details on the streets are there, so maybe it was right. Look at the tree and the details there, to use the flash instead of using a night mode. It's quite interesting because Oppo decided to use the flash more than once in this automatic night mode. And wow, detail levels, yes, it's a bit dark. The exposure is dark, but especially look at the handrails, look at the tires, and those little details you can see there, they're sharp versus not sharp. And let's take a look when I go to the dedicated night mode. First it becomes a bit brighter, not as bright as the Xiaomi, a bit brighter, but then the detail levels are just a slightly bit ahead of that what the Xiaomi has to offer there. It is the better sensor for sure on the ultra wide angle on the Oppo, but also paired with better processing that they're doing, that is keeping the shot a little bit more detailed. It's not a huge difference, we have to say, and especially HDR seems to be better on the Xiaomi, but it is a little bit sharper on the Find X9 Ultra. Main camera sensor quite interesting. Both didn't use the flash, I have to say. So Find X9 Ultra didn't use the flash here, just took the shot with a slightly longer exposure time. And boy, oh boy, is Oppo cooking. It's not a 1-inch type sensor as with the 17 Ultra. 17 Ultra is now even has LOFIC support. But boy, oh boy, you really have to pixel peep and look at the light sources here. You see it's tiny bit better HDR there on the Xiaomi. Also here, not there, this light source, tiny bit better. This light source, a tiny bit better there with the overexposure. But the sharpness, the detail level on the Oppo is just tremendously good. Where here it looks a tiny bit noisy in processing. This looks clean and not artificial. I'm so surprised that this smaller kind of sensor on the Oppo is winning against the larger 1-inch type sensor on the Xiaomi. newer generation sensor. Look at the little raindrops there on the car. So much more realistic than this soft car kind of look that we have there on the Xiaomi. Look at the little details there compared with here. Yes, sometimes it's a bit overdoing it with sharpness on the Oppo, but this is not only overdoing it with sharpness. This is probably now the 200 megapixel binned down and offering you just tremendous details in this shot. This is just simply amazing what Oppo can do out of this smaller sensor. The only thing where you see it struggle is also here. Again, HDR situations where here the individual LED lights can be seen on the Xiaomi, and the Oppo is blending them together a little bit. And also here in the background, slightly less overexposed on the Xiaomi than here. But boy, oh boy, the rest here. Look at that. Individual droplets you almost can see on this car, which are a bit invisible on the Xiaomi. It is really a surprise, but I would give a slight point. I'm just surprised by the Find X9 Ultra. Slight point there for the Find X9 Ultra for that kind of thing. Now the periscope zoom, the telezooms, on paper, the larger sensor on the Find X9 Ultra should easily beat the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. In reality, however, both struggle a little bit with these LED lights there and the lens coating and so on. It's almost identical between them. Just look at this. Both readable. Again, the Oppo was firing the flash to take this shot. There's another shot here where it was not firing the flash. You see how much darker this sign looks like now. And this sign is illuminated here because the Oppo fired the flash. And the Xiaomi was taking the same shot at the same time and got the flash as well there. Yeah, nearly identical. There's really, even if I'm pixel peeping here with this one, I don't notice much of a difference there between both of them. It's really maybe here a little bit, but this is focusing and it's like a bit closer there. It is almost identical between those two, slightly less overexposed as here. This is identical between those two with the periscope zoom at 70, 75. Now let's go to 139 and 100, which is like the highest optical and the 2x crop. It's very hard for the Oppo. I think the Oppo struggles here a lot with its periscope zoom, and you see it here. It's just the shutter speed was too low. It's not firing the flash anymore. It's using the night mode, and yeah, it's a night and day difference there. The Xiaomi is in front for sure. But when we go to 230 times, we notice a slight improvement on the Oppo, but it's still not the best. And it's using f2.2, so that means it's not using the dedicated 10x zoom. If it's too dark, it will not use it. It will refuse using it. And this is what happened here. This is why we get a little bit less details and a little bit more shake introduced there. It's close, but with a slight edge there, for sure, a noticeable edge towards, also in terms of colors here, towards the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. However, when we go to 30x zoom, it's switching now finally to f3.5, so the dedicated 10x zoom, and then it is just winning tremendously against the 17 Ultra. In terms of colors, in terms of detail levels, it's just simply, yeah, cropping in a little bit there. It is working better on the Oppo. The Oppo has the advantage of the optics there. You can see even like the Xiaomi has to invent a little bit of details there. That's not really there because it's like more the shape like this. And anyway, yeah, these are the night photos that you see here with the main sensors. Let's check out the selfie. Quite surprised. Some, maybe others not. Quite soft and yellow and warmish looking on the Xiaomi, where it's a bit greenish, cooler looking on the Oppo. Which one you prefer? Eyebrows redrawn, eyebrows not so much redrawn, but skin's moving like crazy, where skin left as ugly as I really am. Beard more realistic here, where here it is just simply redrawing the beard a little bit there. Way too red there, my skin face. Hard to choose between those two. In the end, I choose the Oppo for being a little bit better with overall consistency, where he is just simply too smoothened out the face and just too unrealistic looking on the Xiaomi. That's my opinion. Write down in the comment section, what do you think about the night photos? That leads us to our final scoring system ranking and conclusion. And as you can see here, the Oppo Find X9 Ultra gets a score of 9.6, where the Xiaomi 17 Ultra gets a score of 9.5. So we have a winner here, which is the Find X9 Ultra. Even if you take a look at the index score here, it's very close. 4.789 versus 4.736. So close together. If you own one of them, you are one of the luckiest out there that has one of the best camera smartphones that is out there. Where are the differences? It's the main camera. A score of 9.9, a bit better there on the Find X9 Ultra, especially at low light you saw it. Daylight is almost identical, the bokeh is identical there. It's just the default colors are a bit nicer on the Find X9 Ultra there. Especially at nighttime, I was so surprised that it just looks a bit crispier. They're really cooking there with the Oppo Find X9 Ultra. Even though it is a smaller sensor, it is at nighttime really shining and showing its potential against the 17 Ultra. It's a tiny bit of a difference here. You see it with the index score of 4.925 on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra versus 4.93. So it's just 0.005 points more there on the Find X9 Ultra, which is really changing the game here. The same almost for the ultra wide angle. We have 8.6 versus 8.7 there, a score. It's a tiny bit better on the Find X9 Ultra, especially when it comes to the rendition at daylight with the normal mode. But also at nighttime, I think it's clever that it's utilizing the flash to give you a bit more detail, even though everything is darker there. But even if you go to the dedicated night mode and you have a nighttime shot, I think there's a bit more detail that you can get out of the Find X9 Ultra in comparison to the 17 Ultra. Then the zoom performance, which is a bit of a difference for sure. First of all, we have the larger sensor there on the Find X9 Ultra that at nighttime does not really make a huge difference, I have to say, against the smaller sensor of the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. With the variable optical zoom, it's quite nice and sometimes even focuses a bit better there. But the Find X9 Ultra in general, for its zoom performance, especially for its dedicated 10x zoom and the reach that you can reach with it, like 30x zoom shots look better than the Find X17 than the Xiaomi 17 Ultra or the Find X9 Ultra. And also, of course, especially at lower light situations, when you zoom in even further, the Find X9 Ultra will take the crown there. It is something I have to compare with others that are also very good with the zoom performance there, but I think it gets a score of 10, which is perfect here. It's as good as it can get for a telezoom sensor, in my opinion, and it's beating the 17 Ultra. Video recording is also beating the 17 Ultra. Stabilization is better on the Find X9 Ultra. The front-facing camera offers nicer colors, and the low light performance is again superb, and it's winning against the 17 Ultra. Even though the 17 Ultra used definitely its dedicated night video mode, we had worse stabilization, we had tons of noise and soft skin, where the Find X9 Ultra is just simply shining and getting very close to the territory of the RYOB 1-inch sensor of the Huawei there for the nighttime video. Video recording in general, switching between lenses, both are very smooth or equally non-smooth in certain situations, so I think they're very, very close there together. But in general, stabilization, colors, those are the things that make the Oppo stand out against the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. And the 17 Ultra still can improve with some software updates, but would, I think, ultimately lose in terms of zooming performance, maximum zooming performance that the Find X9 Ultra with its dedicated 10x zoom can just simply provide. portrait mode, and this is very close. Both get a 9.7 score because they're very, very good. The difference between them is even more negligible, but I think the Find X9 Ultra's computational algorithms that appear to be very natural are a bit of above the portraits that you can get on the 17 Ultra. I tried to show it to you with the photos that I took here, and I think it might become clear that I have the slight tendency to go with the Find X9 Ultra, and this is why you see here you have to look at the index score at 4.87 versus 4.865, so it's again a 0.005 difference between those two. It's really close. What's not so close is the selfie camera. I think I'm a bit disappointed by the 17 Ultra here. Lack of clarity. Yes, HDR in certain situations might be a bit better there, but lack of clarity, and yeah, sometimes it's like not very detailed, and I think the Oppo is doing a much better job there. Camera UI wise, both are on par. Finally, the Oppo is like cooking again with its new camera user interface that is one hand optimized. You can just swipe with one hand and you get a sub menu where you can choose your items, so it's much easier to use. It was overdue to have an overhaul of the camera UI, and I think they did a quite good job. Extra features, both cooking very, very nice extra features. Both cannot compete with the tons of extra features that we have on the Vivo, like 25 frames per second at 50 frames per second, for example. But I really like to see what the Oppo did with its capabilities to just import LUTs and record 4K up to 60, I think, frames per second, maybe even more, and having LUTs applied. I think up to 4K 60 frames per second, it can apply the LUT automatically also to the final file, which is very, very nice. And I think above this, it can at least have it on the viewfinder, which is also very, very nice. So very good that they really invest into the Pro video mode to make it very capable there. What's missing a bit, they have some options there with importing some styles into the system, but I think the Xiaomi 17 Ultra with the C modes there in Pro photo mode is a bit more advanced still, but I like the possibility to just use a QR code to import a style, which is, I think, also pretty handy there in that regard. So very, very good there, both in terms of extra features. So where does it lead us with the end result on the ranking list? And nope, it was so close. The Oppo Find X9 Ultra is not taking the crown from the Vivo X200 Ultra. The X200 Ultra is still number one, but look at the score, the total score. It's exactly the same, 9.6. So everyone who bought the Find X9 Ultra is now mad that the X200 Ultra is sitting at top number one. You have to look at why is that the case, because I'm evaluating certain things a little bit more than others, like for example the ultra wide angle performance, which is better, noticeably better on the X200 Ultra, and hence down also for the X300 Ultra because it has the same sensor there. If they don't screw up the software, it's better than the Find X9 Ultra. It's not even close there, I have to say. However, the zoom performance is better on the Find X9 Ultra, and the video performance is better on the Find X9 Ultra. So what else is there that is better on the Vivo X200 Ultra? Besides the ultra wide angle being so much better, it's just the extra features that we have there that are just a little bit better on the X200 Ultra, and hands down also on the X300 Ultra, especially now also with the newer video-centric and pro video mode they enabled there for Vivo. So Vivo is cooking in that regard there as well. But no matter which one you get here, the Oppo Find X9 Ultra or the Vivo X200 Ultra or even the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, you be happy with the photos that you will get out of them because they are so good. Even the Huawei Pure 80 Ultra in this mix here, adding together, it's just so close between all of them. And yeah, I will test at one point the X200 Ultra against the Find X9 Ultra. Maybe things will change a little bit here and there. And maybe at one point I even get my hands onto the X300 Ultra and can put them to the ranking list here as well. But for now, the Oppo Find X9 Ultra ranked second with the same amount of scoring points as the X200 Ultra, the top-notch camera in the world, and yeah, almost the number one here on my ranking system. That's it for this video. If you have some questions, comments, put them down below. Until the next time, bye.